Welcome back to the channel. Make sure you stay till the end because you'll see some of the craziest runouts of my poker career.
For the year 2025, I'm trying to make $25 an hour while playing both 1-2 and 1-3. Hasn't been the smoothest ride, so let's see where we stand.
We're currently on a 9-session win streak resulting in a $2,044 upswing, which is insane because I've mainly been playing 1-2. Speaking of 1-2, for the year 2025, we played a total of 48 hours and 35 minutes and profited $2,884 for a ridiculous hourly win rate of $59.36. I know this win rate isn't sustainable over a long period of time, but I'll take it any way I can get it. As for 1-3, we played 35 hours and 30 minutes and profited $489 for an hourly win rate of $13.77. Not terrible, but definitely room for improvement. Combining these numbers, we played a total of 84 hours and 5 minutes of live poker and profited $3,373 for an hourly win rate of $40.11. Pretty happy with where our game's at, so let's see if we can keep this winning streak going and make it 10 wins in a row by heading out to the nicest card room in Northern California, which is none other than Stone's Gambling Hall. We buy into the 1-2 game for the max of 300, and in our first hand of the day, I look down at pocket fours in early position and raise them up to $12. Action folds to the cutoff, now puts in a 3-bet to 25, and this specific player doesn't 3-bet light, so the range I'm putting him on is pocket 10s through pocket aces, or ace king and not much else. Folds back to me, and for only $13 more, we're never folding here, so I put in the chips looking to set mine and play for stacks. With $50 in the pot, the flop comes out Queen, Queen, 9 rainbow, giving us third pair. I start off with a check, and surprisingly, he snap checks it back. I was expecting him to bet his entire range, but maybe he has ace king, or is somehow pot controlling with a big pair. Off to a turn, and it peels off the 7 of diamonds, which shouldn't change anything. I check, and once again he checks it back, so now my read is he has ace king and nothing else. Off to a river, we see the 9 of clubs now pairing the board and counterfeiting our pair of fours. We're stuck playing the board, and now ace king has us beat. However, this specific opponent is good enough to fold ace king in this spot if I make the bet look super value heavy, so I throw out $35 of chips trying to make it look like I'm going for thin value with a hand like pocket jacks or pocket 10s, or have a full house. But our plan goes right out the window when he raises to $75. I yeet my cards in the muck after getting caught with my hand in the cookie jar, and he rolls over pocket queens for flop quads. His checkbacks made perfect sense now with that hand, and we start our day punting off $60 into the best hand possible like I'm Nick Airball. Safe to say that wasn't my proudest moment. Looking to get things back on track in this next hand, the low jack opens the action to just $6. He usually limps most of his hands, so even though it is just $6, the range I'm putting him on is pocket 9s through pocket aces and ace 10 through ace king. Folds to me, and I look down at the ladies, pocket queens. Usually I 3-bet big against a small opening size, but I felt like I should go small in order to still get value and not bloat this pot up in case he has a monster. Surprisingly, the button puts in the cold call, and action folds back to the low jack who starts stacking up more chips and ends up putting in a 4-bet to 41. That right there tells me all I need to know. Even though I have the third best hand ever created, I decide to toss it in the muck and limit the damage since I'm 100% convinced we either have the same hand or I have 2 outs against kings or aces. Button decided he wanted to gamble and put in another call, so let's keep the camera rolling to catch the action. With $100 in the pot, the flop came out Jack 10-8 with 2 clubs, and the low jack threw out a bet of $40. Button decided 40 isn't enough and went all in. Low jack snap called, and we're gonna see a run out in a bloated pot. Turn rolled out the 10 of hearts, and river was a blank in the 3 of hearts. Button rolled over ace 10 of clubs for trips, and the low jack showed pocket aces, just as expected. I only showed this hand to emphasize how important it is to know your opponents and stick with your reads. I was able to only lose $15 with an absolute monster hand, which will drastically help my hourly win rate in the long run. So even though we made the right fold, we're still stuck on the day and need to get our stack to the max. I add on $100, we're now into the game for $400 total. Next hand up, I throw on the $6 straddle because I wanted to loosen the table a bit. Action folds to the cutoff who raises to just $12. Button calls, blinds fold, and I look down at Jack 4 diamonds. Not the best hand in the world, but I'm never folding to a min raise, so it's time to defend my straddle. I put in the extra $6, and with $35 in the pot, the flop comes out 10-9-4 with 1 diamond, giving us bottom pair and a backdoor flush draw. I check to the original raiser, who throws out a c-bet of $20. Folds to me, and since I have some backdoor straight and flush draws, I decide to call, but I'm gonna proceed with caution. With $75 in the pot, turn rolls out the 6 of diamonds, now giving us a flush draw to go along with our pair. I check, now he continues betting for $35. At this point I know I'm behind since I figured he'd check back his draws to see a free river. Since he didn't bet big, we're definitely getting the correct price to continue, so I put in the $35, increasing this pot to $145. Off to a river hoping for a jack, 4, or diamond, but it peels off the 9 of clubs, pairing the board, but bringing in the front door flush. Like I said earlier, I know we're behind, so the hand I'm mainly putting him on is a 10 for top pair. In my opinion, the way I played this hand looked like I was chasing the flush and rivered it, or had a hand like 9-8 that ran into trips. Knowing this run out is a lot more favorable for me, I decided to turn my shitty pair into a bluff and throw out a bet of $95 to put some pressure on him, but still make it look like I'm value betting. This bet put our opponent in a long tank, so I'm pretty confident he's gonna make the fold and I could show the table this sick bluff. That doesn't work because he ends up calling and ruining our genius plan. I let him know he's probably good after tabling just a pair of 4s. He rolls over ace-9 offsuit for rivered trips. For how long he tanked, I'm 100% confident our bluff would have worked against any 10, but it's hard for your opponent to fold when you're repping one of the combinations he has in his hand. With not many chips left in my stack, we're forced to add on again, so I buy $200 more in chips and we're now into the game for $600. But I guess buying $600 in chips wasn't enough, because after flopping middle pair with 8-7 of diamonds and 6-5 of clubs, we see some horrible turn cards that force us to fold our hand, so I add on an additional $100 and we're now into the game for $700 at this point. Looking to get back on track when we see 3 limps and I look down at 8-7 of clubs in the cutoff. Good enough for a raise since I'm in position, so I make it $20 to go and get 2 customers to come along. With $65 in the pot, the flop comes out 10-5-3 with 2 clubs giving us a flush draw. They check it over to me, and with the range advantage and a draw, I throw out a c-bet of $45. Wouldn't mind taking it down now with just 8 high, and I think it might happen after action gets folded to the hijack, but now he decides to go all in for $230 total. I go in the tank to see if there's any merit in making this call, but I determine I'm not getting the right odds to make it profitable. He already might have a made hand, or he's doing this with the combo draw like ace-deuce or ace-3 of clubs that has us in horrible shape. So given all those reasons, I toss my hand in the muck, and glad I did after he rolls over pocket 10s for top set, which had us crushed. Glad we made the fold, but we are officially getting our ass kicked. Next hand up, the $5 straddle is on, and it folds to the small blind who calls the $5, and I'm in the big blind and look down at king-queen offsuit. Plenty good enough for a raise, so I make it $20 to go and just get called by the straddler. With $45 in the pot, we're going heads up to a flop of king 6-5 rainbow, giving us top pair second best kicker. I figure I'm ahead a lot of the time, so I start off with a small value bet of $15, to which he calls right away, increasing the spot to $75. Off to a turn, and it pairs the board with the 6 of clubs. If the configuration was different, I'd probably still value bet, but since I'm out of position against the straddler's range, I figured he probably has a lot more 6x hands than I do, and it's gonna be hard to get 3 streets of value anyways. So I check, now our opponent throws out a bet of $20. Never folding to this size, so I make the easy call, and now we're off to a river which isn't the best card in the deck, and the ace of hearts putting an overcard out there. No point in betting since we chop with all king x hands, so I don't think it's possible I could get called by worse. So I check, and now he throws out a bet of $60. To me, this looks super value heavy. My initial instinct was to call since we have a very strong hand, but then I realized all his king x hands would either check back or bet small, and if he had a draw on the turn, he probably would have bet huge to try and get me off my hand. So given all these factors, I'm basically putting him on a monster, which is why I end up tossing my hand in the muck. And I'm glad I did because he flashes the 6 of hearts for turn trips. I think it's safe to say we're getting destroyed, and in order to get this 9-session win streak to double digits, we're going to need a miracle because we're stuck over $500 with less than an hour left to play. Looking to get things going after early position opens the action to $7, 2 people call, and I look down at Ace Queen of Hearts. I'm pretty confident this is the best hand in the field, and when that's the case, it's time to put more money in the pot. I 3-bet to $35 and just get called by a player in middle position. With $90 in the pot, the flop comes out King Queen 7 with 2 clubs giving us middle pair best kicker. I throw out a bet of $30 for value, and he doesn't waste any time before sticking in the call. It's hard to put him on a range since there's so many draws and pairs available, so we're off to a turn and it peels off the worst card in the deck in the 9 of clubs. Now both the front door flush and straight get there on the turn, so I check expecting a pretty hefty bet, but our opponent snap checks it back. Since he's in position, I'm pretty confident he would have bet all his kings, flushes, and straights to start building up a pot and get protection and value, so in my opinion I think we somehow have the best hand. Off to a river, and it rolls out the biggest blank in the deck and the deuce of spades. I don't think there's any hands worse than mine that will call a bet, so I decide to check and hope he bluffs with a hand like ace 10 or ace jack. So after I check, he now throws out a pretty sizable bet of $60. Seems like a value bet type of size, but I made up my mind that I was calling any bet since I figured he would bet all his made hands on the turn. So I call, increasing this pot to $270, and our opponent just tosses his hand in the muck without even showing. Even though we're getting smoked today, pretty happy with how I trusted my read and made the right decision. Next hand up, I throw on the $5 straddle, and under the gun opens the action to $15. Folds all the way to me, and I look down at King 10 offsuit. Not the best hand to see against an under the gun open since its early position opening range should be super tight and probably has us in rough shape. But I have a vlog to make, and it's time to defend my straddle. I put in the extra $10, and we're off to a flop heads up of 10-6-3 rainbow, giving us top pair second best kicker. Pretty solid flop, so I check and flow, and he throws out a half pot bet of $15. Nothing to do than just call here, so I put in the chips, doubling the pot to $60. Turn is safe and the 3 hearts pairing the board, so I check again, but he continues betting for $30 now. Not feeling too great about this spot since he opened under the gun and is fired on multiple streets, but we can't give up yet. I put in the chips, we're off to a river which rolls out the 9 of diamonds. I check again, and luckily he doesn't unload the clip and decides to check it back. I turn over my hand, and he shows ace king of spades which had us in horrible shape pre-flop, but we have the winner. Just glad he didn't fire a triple barrel, or I probably would have folded to a big bet. After winning back-to-back decent pots, we battle back and we're now only down $340, and a win seems difficult, but definitely still possible with this newly found momentum. In this next hand, I'm in early position and look down at one of my favorite hands in poker in Queen Jack of Hearts. I make it $10 to go and get called by both the small blind and big blind. Going 3 ways to a flop of 8-7-4 with 2 hearts, giving us 2 overs and a flush draw. Small blind decides to take matters into his own hands and throws out a super small bet of $10. In my experience, the small donk bet on the flop is almost never a strong hand and usually a pair trying to see where they're at. Something like 8-9, 7-6, or 5-4. Big blind ends up folding. Now action's on me, and since I have the range advantage and a high flush draw, I decided to put pressure on our opponent and make it look like I have an overpair. So I make it $45 to go, and he ends up putting in the chips. Pot sitting at $120, and we're off to a turn which peels off the 6 of clubs. He checks and flow. In my opinion, this is one of the worst cards in the deck. 7-6 now makes 2 pair, and 4-5 has a straight. Since I think I have 0 fold equity against his range, and he probably has a made hand now, I decided to check it back and see a free river. And glad we did because the river rolls out the 5 of hearts, giving us the queen high flush and putting a straight on the board. Our opponent now makes our dreams come true by leading out for a bet of $75. There's no way I'm just calling with this high of a flush, so I put in a raise to $180, hoping he thinks I'm trying to get him off of a straight since there's one on the board. If we manage to win this hand, we'll have amazing odds to pull off this 10-session winning streak and book a miracle comeback. Our opponent does end up making the call, so I proudly turn over our hand expecting to be good, but he shows ace 9 of hearts for the higher flush.
Son of a bitch!
Any momentum we had gets completely derailed. I felt like I got hit by Tyson in his prime. I decided there was no way in hell I was completing the comeback after that run out, so let's get to the outro.
It's hard to win when you bluff into quads and trips and then get flushed over flushed in a massive pot. In for 700 and out for 107 for a massive $593 loss. Not the way I wanted to start off the month. Only one thing to do, which is battle back for day 2.
After a horrible loss yesterday ending our 9-session win streak, I came back the next morning with a positive mindset ready to start a new one. We're about 20 minutes in and down around $60 until our first interesting hand of the day. The under the gun straddle is on, and I'm in early position and look down at the best hand ever created in pocket aces. I make it $12 to go. I wish I went bigger because 4 people end up putting in the call, making this a super multi-way pot. With $60 in the middle, the flop comes out Jack 5 deuce with 2 clubs, giving us the overpair. Really couldn't have asked for a better flop because 2 pairs should never be represented, and pocket jacks probably would have 3-bet pre-flop. So when action gets checked to me, I start off with a value bet of $35 and just get called by the button, mainly putting him on a jack or a flush draw and not much else. Off to a turn, we see the 8 of diamonds, which shouldn't really change anything. Whenever I'm value betting, I try to determine the maximum amount I could bet that will keep all his top pairs and flush draws in there, since we never want them to fold. I figured $65 will do the trick. It looks like it worked because he snap called, doubling this pot to $260. Off to a river, it peels off a very interesting card in the Jack of Spades pairing the top card. I now lose to all his jacks that river trips, but the good news is all the front door flush draws bricked out. The reasonable play would be to check evaluate, but I decided to do something very unorthodox, which is to lead out for $5. I mainly do this because over the years this annoyingly small bet has baited a lot of missed flush draws into spazzing and putting a raise. So I think it worked because now the button bets $55. I wasn't too happy with this sizing because it seemed super value heavy, and I figured his missed draws would have bet way bigger, but to only have to call $50 more to win a pot of $370, I'm just never folding. So I put in the chips, and he rolls over ace-8 of clubs for the missed flush draw, but turned pair. I think the $5 bet made him raise for value, which helped us win the maximum. Just glad he didn't have trips. After winning the aces hand, we're feeling pretty good about our game, looking to put yesterday's loss in the rearview mirror with a big win. This next hand, under the gun limps and action folds to me, and I look down at pocket tens and raise him up to $12. Folds back to under the gun, who puts in the extra 10. We're off to a great flop of 6 deuce deuce with 2 diamonds, giving us the overpair. I start off with a value bet of $10 and waste no time before putting in the call. Turn rolls out the king of clubs, which puts an overcard out there, but I'm not too worried he has a king because under the gun limps are usually small pocket pairs or suited aces. I could check since his small pairs can't stand any heat with the king, but they're not calling a river bet anyways, so it's important that I charge the diamonds and don't miss out on value. I make it $15 to go, and now he raises to $45. Couldn't have folded faster since turn and river raises are almost never a bluff. He rolls over pocket sixes for the flop full house. Both our reads of him having a small pocket pair while also having us beat were spot on. So even though that hand didn't go our way, at least we're still up on the day. In this next hand, the $4 straddle is on, and early position opens the action to $20. She's been opening all kinds of hands this session, so when action folds to me on the button, I once again look down at pocket tens, which should be way ahead of the player in early position. When that's the case, it's time to put more money in the pot. I 3-bet to $65 for value, and now the small blind goes all in for 94 total, which I hated to see since he's pretty tight. Folds back to the player in early position, who now re-jams for 131. At this point, I knew I was screwed, but I only have to call $66 more to win a pot of $360. So I'm just never folding. I side call it off, hoping they both have ace king, but we all reveal our hands and it's worse than I thought. Small blind shows pocket jackasses, and early position shows the ladies, pocket queens. So with 2 outs and a dream and our opponents holding our straight outs, we fail to hit the miracle 2-outer and lose a sizable pot to put us in the red. I had on $200 to get my stack to the max. We're now into the game for $500 total. Looking to turn things around when the $4 button straddle is on, and I look down at pocket 5s in early position. I decided to just call the $4 since stacks weren't too deep. I didn't want to open them to get raised and be forced to fold. So I put in the chips, and so did the small blind, big blind, and button. So we're going 4 ways to a flop of ace king 5 rainbow, giving us bottom set and essentially the best hand since aces or kings should always raise pre-flop. Big blind decides to lead out for $4, and I'm mainly putting him on a weak ace and don't want him to fold, so I put in a super small raise to $10. He's our only customer, so the pot's increased to $35 and we're off to a turn which peels off the queen of spades. Still think we have the best hand, since I doubt Jack 10 is ever leading out into a small pot with just a gut shot, so when he checks, I still have an easy value bet. I throw out a bet of $25 which should keep all his top pair holdings in there, but now he does something I wasn't expecting and raises to $75. Like I've mentioned in every vlog I've ever posted, turn raises are never bluffs, but we've already determined how we should always have the best hand in this scenario since it's a limp pot. So I'm putting our opponent on a random 2-pair or a hand like ace-x of spades. He has $105 left in his stack after the raise, so I waste no time before putting him all in. He snap calls, and we both roll over our hands, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing when he reveals pocket aces for top set. He somehow slow played aces and got the perfect run out for the super rare situation of set over set. We have 1 out and 1 out only, but the river is a blank and we double up our opponent. Never would have put him on that hand in a million years, but after a great start to the day, we are officially getting smoked. Again. Once again, I add on $200 to my stack to get to the max, so we're now into the game for $700 total. Unfortunately kept bleeding chips left and right, so leading up to this hand we're stuck over $500 for the second time in as many days. For this one I throw on the $4 straddle, and early position opens the action to $10. Button calls, and I look down at ace 3 offsuit. Not the best hand in the world to defend with, but I'm never folding for only $6 more, so it's time to defend my straddle. I put in the chips, and we're off to a flop 3 ways of 9-3-3 rainbow giving us trips. I check and flow, and now action gets checked through. I'd love to say I'm 100% certain I have the best hand, but after our opponent slow played the aces earlier, it's hard to be too confident. Off to a turn, and it peels off the ace of clubs, now giving us a full house. I could lead out, but I decided to check since I think any ace will bet, and it's a good card for someone to bluff at. So I check. Now the button throws out a bet of $20. I debate raising, but I don't want him to fold out his weak aces if I raise, plus I could play it super unorthodox and lead out on the river which will throw him off. So I just call the $20 and everyone else gets out of the way. With $70 in the pot, the river is amazing when it rolls out the 3 of hearts giving us quads. If our opponent has an ace, he's never folding, and if he was bluffing on the turn, he can't call any size bet, so I go huge and lead out for $90. Our opponent ends up snap folding, saying they had a small pair, and there's currently a $100 high hand bonus going on every hour, so I reveal my hand and it's currently in the lead. The next few orbits were just horrible. Picked up some strong hands but couldn't do shit with them. So once again I reach into the wallet and add on $200 more, so we're now into a 1-2 game for $900 total and stuck over $600. After playing a few more hands, I realized the game just wasn't good anymore, so I decided to stay till 1 p.m. to see if my high hand held. Once I found out it did, I received the $100 prize and just take the fat L and get the hell out of Dodge before I go bankrupt.
Session looked promising until we lost to 2 overpairs and then got set over set in a massive pot. At least we were able to hit the high hand bonus to limit the damage. In for $900, and out for $396 for a massive $504 loss.
As for this week in poker, we got absolutely smoked. We played 6 hours and 20 minutes of 1-2 and lost $1,097 for an hourly win rate of negative $173.22. I I didn't think it was possible to lose this much at 1-2 in that short of a time span, but here we are. With those 2 massive losses, our stats took a big hit. We've now played a total of 54 hours and 55 minutes of 1-2 and profited $1,787 for an hourly win rate of $32.54. Not ideal, but I knew we couldn't have kept the $60 an hour win rate going, so this was inevitable. As for 1-3, we played 35 hours and 30 minutes and profited $489 for an hourly win rate of $13.77. Not too shabby, but definitely room for improvement. Combining all our stats, we played a total of 90 hours and 25 minutes of live poker and profited $2,276 for an hourly win rate right at our goal of $25.17. If you would have told me last week this is where our stats would be, I would have been super disappointed. But if you would have told me in January we would be here after being stuck over $1,600, I would have been pumped. So it's all about perspective. So now the goal is to not fall below this mark for the rest of the year and get back on track. Thanks for watching, and as always, I hope you guys run good at the tables, and I'd appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button to help me reach my year-end goal of 20,000 subscribers.